I'm Paul Roberts, and this is Conscious Counseling 101, and this is the fourth part of a series on the pool of ideas, disassociating yourself, overcoming the delusion, walking away, unplugging from the pool of ideas of mankind, rebirthing yourself to a new heightened conscience, allowing the dawn of your new heightened conscious to to happen, to reach out to you while you're in that pool, to step outside that pool and to move forth and understand how now we're going to evaluate all the ideas and start fresh and not become susceptible to the delusions that we were originally susceptible to while in that pool. And on each step that we walk into that pool anew, every time we succumb to a delusion, we must go back to that last step we were before any delusion was a part of it and proceed from that point. Never can you go off and somehow come back. If you saw Back to the Future series, you saw how they went into the Biff world. The only way they could get back and make things right was to go before they got to the Biff world again. If they stayed in the Biff world, there was no way to change that back. Okay? This is exactly another movie type of correlation that I can explain to you, as well as The Matrix. With Groundhog Day, you have the ability to come back forced on you because you must come back every single time. So there's three movies that we can look at and try to understand these things. But we're going to force this on us like Groundhog Day. We're going to not go towards the Biff world in Back to the Future and continue down that route. And we're not going to be in the Matrix unaware so that we can never even start on this course. We're going to use those three movies and the messages as what you can get from them in helping you to awake into your heightened conscious ability for the first time. So now as we walk forward into that pool, this is just a summary video. As we walk forward into that pool, every time we analyze something, if there's any chance that we're going to use the delusion itself to make our decision, we must then backstep again or suffer going into the Biff delusional dimension. We must always come back and never allow ourselves to go even one step in the delusion, not even one. This is what a heightened conscious mentality is. This is how you achieve it. It's a slow process. It's a deliberate process. It's a totally true objective process. Now you'll find people in the pool of ideas that think they're doing this process. You'll find people in there that tell you that they're serious and committed to objectivity. They're scientific in the way they look at things. They see everything else for the ruse and the delusion that it is, but they don't. Because even in their espousal of what they're saying, at the best, they've composed it based on delusion. You need to realize this. You need to take the steps we talked about in the first three videos, and now you're on this perfect walk towards heightened conscience. Now, you know what the formula is. You know how to do it. Now it's in your hands. Do you have the discipline? You have the understanding of why it's important. Do you have the discipline? Do you have what it takes to force yourself to do this? That's the question. Can you pull yourself out of the realm of where you were? Many people come to me with so caught up in the delusion that they are, but very, 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 very connected to it. And if they're happy and comfortable, it's impossible, seemingly, to pull them away. But if they're not happy, they're uncomfortable, maybe even depressed, it's possible to reach them, I believe, a little bit easier, because if you can demonstrate to them how they got to the state they're at, which they're saying they're not happy with, there's a greater likelihood that they'll realize what you're saying and want to do something about it. Have a desire or a motivation to do something about it. If you find that you're unhappy, you're depressed, you can't figure out what to do, I'm suggesting what I'm suggesting because there's a very strong likelihood that you did not arrive at where you're at based on this route that I'm describing. And so because you have nothing to lose, you can always go back to where you are. I suggest if you're truly unhappy, you do something about it. Not that this has anything to do with anything, but I think it was Thomas Jefferson that said discontentment is the necessary ingredient of progress. It's more likely that someone that feels there's something not right about something is going to have the motivation to do something. We go back to the Matrix again. Neo sensed that something was wrong. He didn't know what it was, but he sensed it. This was enough to heighten his conscience, to allow himself to make the necessary steps to become unplugged. If you sense that anything that I've spoken to you about in these videos has any validity at all, and you understand the process that I'm describing to you, then there's a very good chance that you're capable of following this road for yourself and this pathway for yourself and taking it even from this very elemental point that I'm leaving you with without any help from me any further or anyone else. You now have the tools that you need to design your own tools and walk that path. Only to the degree that you allow yourself to slip and do not serve yourself with dedication of making sure you go back to that first place. Only to the extent that you're able to do that will your success be measured. If you allow yourself to deviate down into a biff world at the very first point you get to a place in your life where you say, this is good enough, I like what I've done, I'm glad I did this, but it's good enough. At that point when you slip into delusion, you've risen to a higher level in life. Okay? Psychiatry can get you there, other means can get you there, but this can get you there on its own by yourself. However, the level of how far you'll go with it is up to you. At any point, if you detract from this formula and you take a deviation because of comfort or because you like where you were or because you want to be more serving and catering to the physical you and the physical realm of what your pleasures and desires can achieve for you, at any point on that journey, whether you call it a spiritual journey or a secular journey, the labeling of it is not important. If at any point as you're walking toward that pool and into that pool of ideas, you fail and deviate into delusion because you need comfort or you've gone as far as you can go or you're like where you're at and you'd like to just now enjoy this where you've come to. Your elevation into a certain level of society has been achieved through your self-empowerment. Let's stay there. This is good. I can live with this. Now I'm going to relish in the enjoyment of it. If at any point you get to that point, you had better hope that that's all there is and that you can just live that out and enjoy it all the days of your life. Because if you're wrong, that will have been the end. That'll be all you will ever amount to. You have subscribed to being in the world and being of the world on a given level that you deem acceptable. That's a psychosocial crisis. That's as far as you'll ever go. The only way to overcome that is to go back to the point where you left off before you made that deviation into the realm of acceptance of the delusion. That is the only way you can continue your journey forward. Your ability to determine where that point was is also made more faulty by the depths of the delusion that you've entered into. So, as in Back to the Future 3, you can't go, not 3, 2, it was the Biff world was in 2. You can't go into the Biff world and come out a few days after you went into the Biff world and correct it. You must come out, the earliest you could possibly come out is where you went into the Biff world or prior to that. If you enter so far into the delusion that you can never find your way back to the point of entry, You must back up, even at the risk of having to start all over again. Because if at any point you do not back up to a solid truth that you do not know, but you've entertained and accurately analyzed every idea for what can be understood about it without delusion, you must start over again. Now, starting over doesn't have to take as long as it did the first time. It doesn't have to. In fact, you can start over as many times as you like and get right back up to where you were and retrace your steps. In fact, I think you should. I do. Reevaluate every single one of your steps into that pool and every single idea that you've analyzed every chance you get. And don't go forward with the next idea until you're sure once again that every single idea that you've considered was considered completely objectively without delusion. So get in the cyclical motion and deliberate habitual habitation of repeating this one behavior of complete analytical objectivity. All other behavioral realms that are repetitive in the realm of delusion are detrimental to behavior and outcome. But repeated behavioral patterns that are founded completely in objectivity, without immersion in any delusion whatsoever, even the smallest amount, are repetitive behaviors that are only productive and will only lead to heightened conscious growth. So make that your repetitive behavior. Make that your pathway out of delusion. Make that your pathway to understanding and believing what can be believed in a sense that it's stronger than what can be known. Because what you're going to believe is only as far as you can get, and you'll never go beyond that. You will stay in the realm of faith and belief for the rest of your life. And if you can stay in this realm and not succumb to delusion of any kind, then the belief and the faith that you have will truly not be of delusion. Whatever you have will be of the most real significance and truth that it can be. I'm not going to tell you what that's going to be. You're going to tell yourself what it's going to be. And you're going to have the degree of confidence that you need to have to do that on your own, and be able to trust yourself based on your analysis of every step that you've taken, not anything else that's occurred with anybody else, but based on what you've done. And you have got to be certifiably sure that when you started, you were completely free of the pool of the ideas of mankind and the delusions that they meant for you. You have got to start off unplugged, stay unplugged the entire time, and if you deviate and fall and slip, come back to the point where you knew that you were unplugged. If you can't come back to the point where you knew you were unplugged, you've lost. You failed. It's over. You get as many chances as you can, as you need, until you die. But your conscious ability to do this only exists for the time that your conscience is alive. This should be what your meaning of life is. This choice and heightening conscious decision-making process should be about what your life is about. If it's not, you have already failed and you're in the delusionary process, and unless you can find some way to see this or be pulled out by your own means or through heightened means of some other kind or by help from another person or whatever, if you can't break the cycle of where you're already engulfed in, that will be your world, and you won't be able to heighten from the world of delusion on your own. You won't be able to heighten your conscience.